I am Dr. Gayatri, Assistant Professor at Smriti College of Pharmaceutical Education, Indore, from the Department of Pharmacology. In our today's class, we will look at what are hematinics and how do they work. So, in the treatment, the first drug which we see is oral iron. Iron can be taken either through oral route or through parenteral route. So, first we will look at iron which is taken through oral route. So, this is preferred, oral route of iron administration is a preferred route, and the ferrous salts are inexpensive. So, taking in this way, the iron, the ferrous salts which are available are both inexpensive, they have high iron content and are better absorbed than ferric salts, especially at higher doses. So, gastric irritation and constipation are very common adverse effects of iron supplements. So, these are related to these adverse effects are related to the total amount of elemental iron that is present in the supplementation which is being administered. So, coming to the preparations of oral iron, therapeutic doses 100 mg to 200 mg of elemental iron per day, and when it comes to children it is 3 to 5 mg per kg per day, and then prophylactic doses 30 mg of elemental iron per day, and in children it is 1 mg per day. So, the oral iron preparations are ferrous sulfate, ferrous fumarate, ferrous gluconate and colloidal ferric hydroxide, and the fifth one is carbonyl iron. It is high purity metallic iron in a very fine powdered form. So, as we have seen, the adult dose is 200 mg of elemental iron either daily in 3 divided doses. It produces maximal hemopoietic responses, and in infants and children it is 3 to 5 mg per kg. Prophylactic doses 30 mg of iron daily, and absorption. So, when iron supplements are being taken, it is observed that the absorption of these drugs or the iron from these drugs is much higher when they are taken on an empty stomach. But along with that, the adverse effects of iron such as gastric irritation etc., they are also higher when they are taken on empty stomach. So, many patients prefer taking them after meals than between the meals. So they are preferred to be given. So, because their absorption is better when taken on empty stomach, if a patient is taking them on empty stomach, the dose can be less. But then, because that is not preferred, large doses are given between large doses are given after the meals, or comparatively smaller doses between the meals. So, presence of food reduces his absorption, because of which if the patient prefers to take them after meals and avoid taking them on empty stomach, in such patients larger doses will be given. But in patients who are okay with taking the drug between the meals when there is no food content in the stomach, in such cases smaller doses are sufficient. So, coming to adverse effects of oral iron, epigastric pain, heartburn, nausea, vomiting and bloating are commonly seen. Along with that, staining of teeth, a metallic aftertaste in the mouth, and constipation is a very common adverse effect of iron supplements. So, this constipation can be attributed to its astringent action of iron. So, constipation is more frequent or very common compared to diarrhea, which is seen in very rare cases. So, tolerance to oral iron develops over a period of time, and this can be improved by starting the therapy at a low dose and then gradually increasing it to the optimal dose or the necessary dose. So, the next route of administration of iron is parenteral iron. So oral iron therapy is most often preferred route, but then parenteral iron therapy is done only when oral iron is not being tolerated by the patient. That is, the adverse effects of oral iron are too much, or the failure to absorb oral iron. If the patient absorption of oral iron is less, and if the effect of it is not being seen in the patient, in such conditions, so this failure to absorb oral iron can happen in conditions such as malabsorption, inflammatory bowel disease, that is IBD, chronic inflammation in conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis. They also cause reduced iron absorption, and also in conditions where patient is non-compliant to the oral iron, in presence of severe deficiency with chronic bleeding along with erythropoietin therapy, oral iron may not be absorbed at sufficient rate to so if along with erythropoietin therapy, if oral iron is being given, thus it may not reach to the sufficient level. Because of that, so when oral iron reaches sufficient level, only then erythropoiesis, that is production of RBCs, can be done. So that cannot be achieved with oral iron. So in such conditions also parenteral iron is preferred. So parenteral iron is given only when the patient is non-compliant, oral iron is not being tolerated, there is inabsorption of oral iron, and then in presence of severe deficiency like conditions such as chronic bleeding, and also along with erythropoietin therapy. So parenteral iron therapy needs calculation of dose. So that is a total iron requirement of the patient should be calculated. Based on that only the dose should be decided. So the formula for calculating this is iron requirement in mg is equal to 4.4 into body weight of the patient in kg into HB deficit, that is hemoglobin deficit, gram per dl. So iron requirement is nothing but 4.4 into body weight into hemoglobin deficit. So if the patient's hemoglobin level is 87, so based on the normal value the deficit is seen, and from that deficit, according to the patient's body weight, the total iron requirement of this patient is calculated, and based on that the parenteral iron dose is decided. So formulations of parenteral iron, there are 4 formulations, out of which 2, that is iron dextran and iron sorbitol citric acid, these 2 have been in use for a very long period, that is over 5 decades. And then ferrous sucrose and ferric carboxymaltose, these are comparatively newer formulations and are less risky and have improved ease of administration. So coming to iron dextran, it is a high molecular weight colloidal solution and it contains 50 mg of elemental iron per ml. So it is the only preparation that can be injected both as IM as well as IV, that is intramuscular or intravenous. Both routes it can be administered. So in the injected muscle, 10 to 30% of the dose remains locally bound and becomes unavailable for utilization for several weeks. So 10 to 30% of the total dose taken through IM route will remain bound locally, because of which this amount of iron is practically not useful. Because of this reason, 25% of extra dose need to be added to the calculated dose. So when the dose is calculated, 25% of that calculated dose should be added while giving this to iron dextran to the patient. So it is not excreted in urine or in bile, because this dextran, iron dextran, the dextran which is used is antigenic in nature. Because of this, there is high chances of anaphylactic reactions than with the seen with iron dextran than with newer formulations such as ferric carboxymaltose. Adverse effects. there are local adverse effects as well as systemic adverse effects. So because it is given as an injection, local adverse effects are pain at the site of injection, pigmentation of skin and sterile abscesses, especially in old and very weak patients. And coming to systemic adverse effects, they are fever, headache, joint pains, flushing and palpitation, chest pain, dyspnea, lymph node enlargement. So an anaphylactic reaction resulting in vascular collapse and death also has been noted in rare cases.